Welcome back to the SwimGuys Podcast, and welcome back as we continue with our University of Toronto Varsity Blues Swimming Month here on the show. Thank you for coming back, and thank you for those of you that shared the show with your friends. It was a great week. Byron's episode was unbelievably well received, as the downloads never really slowed down during the week, which is a pattern that we're not used to, as most people download on the day it's released and then it slows down, but it actually started to pick up as the week went on. So thank you very much for sharing the show. Last week was all about Byron swimming days, so if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to part 1. Part 2 might be even better, as Byron is getting ready to drop some coaching knowledge on you. So this will be a great episode as well. Before we continue on with the episode and Varsity Blues Month here on the show, I'd like to reach out to the entire U of T Varsity Blues swimming community. I'm so sad to let everyone know that one of our own, Sandra Judd, who you may have known as Sandra McCleary during her varsity days, unfortunately lost her husband this week, Dave Judd, to a sudden illness. He was diagnosed with brain cancer just a couple of months ago, so they didn't really have a lot of time to come to terms with it. I've known Sandra for over 20 years, as we started with U of T the same year. We lived in the same residence, so we were on the same meal plan, as it was that kind of all you can eat buffet style. So, you know, we got to know each other fairly well in that first year of university. And she is just a sweetheart. Her husband, Dave, was a beloved member of the swimming community, having stayed with coaching right up until his illness was discovered a couple months ago. And he leaves behind Sandra and 2 young sons. There is a GoFundMe account set up to help them through their grieving process. And I'd like to appeal to all of you to give and help Sandra's family. Even if it's just a small amount, just a few dollars, every little bit helps. You can find the account at gofundme.com/support-the-Judds. That's Judds. You can find the link to that GoFundMe account in our show notes for this episode, as well the link in our bio for any of our social media accounts, so Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook will be able to take you there as well. Thank you very much for any of you that are able to give. I'm not sure how to best segue into the show now, so I'm not even going to try and do it smoothly. I'm just going to take us right to it. Please enjoy part 2, our final part of this phenomenal interview with Byron MacDonald, the greatest storyteller in all of swimming.
Here's Byron!
Let's go again.
All right, let's do it.
All right, well... So we covered a lot of the swimming days, so let's and I think we covered the transition to coaching at the beginning, but let's get back into coaching.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so I guess we got the story about how you started coaching at York and then U of T.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to guide the direction here,
Sure.
But where do we go in terms of, because you've coached on national teams as well?
Yes.
So can we touch on some of those?
Yeah, and the other thing we'll touch on first was I only coached men in the beginning. That was the only position that was open at York University, and for whatever thoughts in my mind, I felt that was what I grew up with. I only grew up in men's teams. When I was in high school, that's all they did. They didn't have. This is a long time ago, and thank God for Title IX and everything else, but there was no women's team when I was in high school. It was only a men's team.
Sorry, what's Title IX?
Title IX is the NCAA initiative where you've got to fund women's sport. It came out in 1973, I believe it was. You're supposed to do the same number of scholarships, same number of opportunities, same everything. Obviously, football skews it, and a lot of the universities are given small exemptions to it, but what it did do is it forced them in the United States to offer scholarships to hundreds of women in sport across the country. So it ended up being tens of thousands of scholarships, which then meant that women had an opportunity to pursue that in university, which meant then they wanted to pursue it in high school, which meant the high schools then had to start high school teams and hire coaches and da-da-da-da. And it really ended up being a phenomenal breakthrough in women in sport back in the 70s. But in the 60s, when I was in school, there was very, very little. There was really nothing for women. It was awful. And so I was on a men's only team. Then when I went to university, same thing. The Title IX was just starting. They had a women's team, but it was very cursory. It was just kind of getting off the ground at that point. So the talent and everything else wasn't there, and the coach wasn't quite that organized yet. So it was strictly a men's team, 18 men on the team. So I kind of felt that's what I was going to do. And even up here, they were segregated as well. Men's and women's teams were usually separate initially then in the 70s. So I came up and took the men's team at York University, and then after 2 years, as we said, I left York and came to the University of Toronto, and it was the men's team here. It wasn't the women's team. Marilee Stratton, who actually had been on the Olympic team with me in 1972 in Munich, was the head coach of the women's team. She'd graduated from the University of Toronto, and they just sort of gave her the golden key, and she walked right into the job here at the University of Toronto.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Is Marilee still here, still with your team?
Marilee is still affiliated with the university. I don't think she's not full-time anymore, right? She's retired, but she coached the women's team for, I'd say, must have been 10 years or something, right? My current assistant coach, Linda Kiefer, was coached by Marilee Stratton when she was her undergrad years here. And then Marilee moved out of coaching in mid-80s, 84 I believe it was, 83, and did full-time duty in the kinesiology, back then it was called the physical education faculty.
That's where I remember her from.
That's right,
that's the program I was in.
And was phenomenal with the students. She's so good and conscientious of dealing with the students and all their needs and everything, and that was her strength, and she did that for a long, long time. So I only coached the men then when I first got here in the fall of 1978, and then in 83, I believe it was the fall of 83 Olympic year, which was a bit tough, right? Because then all of a sudden I took over the women's team then in that fall. So I've gone from coaching 20 people to now coaching 40, 45. And it was Olympic year, and I had a couple very strong athletes that, were poised to go to the Olympic Games, hopefully, if I, did my job and didn't screw up, them in the water. But it was the first time I was going to take somebody through an Olympic prep, and because 80 was a boycott. So as much as I'd been coaching Dan Thompson at that time, it was off the table. There was not really, it wasn't the same thing, right? Yeah, we kind of named a team, but it wasn't, they weren't going to the Olympics or anything. So this is a very big year and a very stressful year, and I was able to get a little bit of help that year, but it was a tough year just to take on the women for the first time ever and coach those guys. Now, as it turned out, the swimmers I had went 1-2 in the 100 free at the Olympic trials. Dan, unfortunately, was injured and didn't swim as well as he could have, so he didn't make the team in the 100 fly, but the other guy on our team, Dave Churchill, did. He won the 100 fly at the trials. So
listen to episode 1 for that story. I started coaching women at that point, and I've coached them ever since, and it's been, I'm ecstatic that I'm able to coach women as well as men. Each, it's a slightly different approach, I would say, to both, but I believe coaching them together helps. I think it might help women more than it helps men, because obviously if you have a superstar woman, like right now, as I think most people know, we have Kylie Masse, who's the fastest backstroker in the world, broke the world record last summer. So there's obviously not a lot
Congratulations.
of women. Thank you very much. All right. It was a hell of a mountain to climb, that one. That's
amazing.
Quite impressive. I'm quite pleased that we were able to do that for her and for our program.
Yeah.
So. But obviously in workouts, there's nobody that can touch Kylie. There's nobody even close. And when she, we threw up in the relay in the 4x1 and the 4x2 relays, and she did times that would have almost made the national team. Like, she can swim everything and anything. So even in workouts and freestyle, there's nobody that can go with her. But of course, we can put her up against the men, and it's great. I mean, some of the men can't beat her, right? but at least 1 or 2 of them can go with her, right?
Yeah.
And challenge her. And so swimming women with men is a really big advantage to the women. For the men, not so much, because you're superstar men or you're really good men. Obviously, there's nobody for them. So you've got to be a little bit more on those men in terms of training times, goal times, etc., because they could be winning the repeats in workout and yet not working as hard as they really should be. Whereas with the women, you can just set up a racing scenario and it can succeed that way. So so now we've got a program that is co-ed program year round. So
having been part of that co-ed program, because I swam with you in the late 90s, some of my closest friends now are from the women's team back then. So, I mean, I've got friends I got guy friends too, but.
Well, and that's the beauty. So, it was, we had a first-year student last year. Her name is Rachel Rodet. She's from, actually, the same home team as Kylie Masse, is from outside Windsor. And I couldn't quite read her, and I thought maybe she wasn't having as much fun first year. You know, it's the first year. We only been here 2 months and everything, because she wasn't smiling. I didn't see it as much, but she was swimming pretty well and everything. And then she put a post on. I don't do any of the social things, right? But people show me them once in a while, right? You know. And she put a post and said, you know, I was leaving home. You know, the gist of it was I was leaving home and I didn't know anybody. It's a big evil city of Toronto, everybody says. And I now have 50 new family members, you know, my swim team here at the University of Toronto. Oh. You know, and it was heartwarming to read that.
That's
and, you know, but that's the beauty of having men and women on the team is it isn't a team of 20 now. It's a team of 45.
Yeah.
So you've got 45 people that can be your friends, and in a in a campus that you're coming to where you know nobody, it's a really big advantage, right?
Yeah.
So and the swimmers, as you know, Jason, after everybody usually lives in residence first year, and then after first year they all sort of move into all these houses that are across the street here and rent flats and apartments and stuff, and it's invariably all the swimmers that live together.
Right.
Yep.
And or some of the people they might have lived, they might have met a track person in the dorm first year, and they might be part of the swimming group or whatever.
So eat, breathe, sleep, swim.
It is, right? And they have a lot in common. They understand the motivation for swimming, and I've given guest lectures in this, and they've asked me to comment on the difference between team sport and an individual sport, and there's a gigantic difference, because in a team sport, you really have to be a team player. What I mean by that is, if you're a really good running back, and in football, and you train your ass off, and you're ready to go, but your 3 offensive linemen are lazy buggers, you're really not going to succeed. So you need to figure out how to motivate those guys to buy in like you're buying in. But in swimming, if you train your butt off, and the 2 guys in the lane next to you don't train, it isn't going to affect your performance at all. I mean, it is a little bit because the atmosphere is not as good, etc. But bottom line is, you can still succeed at a very, very high level. And those guys won't, right? They won't get carried, because swimming's pretty unrelentless. You touch the wall, you look up at your time. If you're supposed to go a minute and you went 1:03, you know damn well you didn't do a very good job, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in football or team sports, you can kind of hide. You know, nobody really knows if you're playing a weak opponent. You could still be doing really well, whereas you really maybe didn't earn it. You didn't train hard enough. You didn't prepare properly. You can hide. And a give and go in hockey, if the other guy can't keep up with you, you're not getting the puck back. Right?
Exactly.
Right? So team sports is really different that way, and also team sports usually have crowds.
Right.
Swim meets, we understand. When they're 10, they get crowds because grandma and grandpa and uncles come, right? But by the time you get to university, there's flies up there, right? I mean, it may be mom and dad if you live close, but we're not selling the place out.
Right.
You know? So you're doing it for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody, hardly 0.1% of the people might be making some money off the sport.
Right.
So you're doing this for love of sport and love of personal pleasure. So.
Yeah. Byron, I'm interested actually in your opinion. I started at a really young age, because I was identified like just natural swimmer at a really young age, and I was a good hockey player, but my parents weren't swimmers, but I was put into swimming, and I went with that. But that's all I did before and after school. And so I found after about 8 or 9 years of it, I actually burnt out and got sick of it. And so what do you think now, this day and age? Do you think kids should start later if they're identified as good swimmers? Should they be doing multi-sport? What's your thoughts?
That's $1 million question, right? And I don't know why.
From what you've seen.
But yeah. Well, I think the real answer is, a different paintbrush for different people. Like, in other words, you can't paint everybody with the same brush. I guess that's the phrase I'm looking for, right? So, I think doing lots of multi-things is the best idea, particularly for boys, because you're not going to be a star in the sport of swimming until your testosterone and everything kicks in anyway. So, if you want to swim eventually, you got to swim when you're young. It's astronomically more difficult to take up the sport of swimming if you have not really been doing it, when you're 16 or 14 even, right? Like, you've got to be doing it at a young age. You don't have to be doing it 8 times a week, but you've got to be doing some swimming at that point to establish those neural pathways and stuff, right? The fear for the sport of swimming, if you say be well-rounded and do a lot of other sports, is that when you come to swimming then, you're so far behind everyone else that you choose then not to see if you could actually get better, and you just say, screw this, I'm not going to pursue it because I'm getting my butt kicked pretty badly by everybody.
Right.
So you may, as a sport, we may lose out on, Rory, the potential superstar, because he decided to do hockey and football and track and everything else, and he did a bit of swimming, and he was great, but now he's 13. He is so far behind Tom and Bill and Jason that he says, it's not worth it. I was pretty good when I was 8 and I could race these guys. Now I'm so far behind. I don't want to take 2 years to find out maybe I'm actually not that good. You know, and so we won't gain those people in the sport. So selfishly, I would like people to be in swimming, not necessarily full-time. I think it's good to do some other stuff, but not really part-time, like twice a week only. You know, I think it'd be good if you could do it more than that and then try to supplement it with some other sports. The million-dollar question, though, is women. That's where there's a problem. And the reason it's a problem is that there actually is a light at the end of the tunnel that you could actually succeed at a really high level when you're 16. That's the problem. You could take a good woman when she's 10 and say, oh, why don't you do multi-sport? Well, the problem is she actually might be able to be great at 15 or 16, like Penny Alexiak.
Right.
You know, we have lots of situations where women can succeed on the international stage at a very young teenage age, and men cannot. So you can afford to put off sort of the intense development, whatever you want to call it, for the men. But for the women, it's a question that, you know, I don't coach kids that young, so I actually don't have to make this decision, thank God, right? Yeah. But it's a really big question because you could miss your opportunity by not focusing at a young age on excelling. Because two things happen. One, you simply become behind the 8 ball of people that are training very hard. Or two, your body changes. You know, happens much more drastically to women than it does men. Men just get bigger and stronger by and large, all right, because of testosterone, etc. Whereas women, body changes dramatically as they reach puberty simply because of, you know, the adipose tissue that is just something that happens to virtually all women. And so their great strength to weight ratio when they're young disappears. And some make it through that hump at 16, 17, 15, whenever it hits. But if you're not going full tilt and you're not doing really well, it's usually a stumbling block, and we lose women out of sport at that age. So it's a very, you know, so it's kind of, if you're really on a roll, you can make it through that. Some don't make it through anyway, but you can maybe make it through. But if you start late and then you hit that speed bump, it's tough to get over that speed bump.
And so what would your, I guess, advice be for parents of swimmers who, a lot of younger swimmers, parents may not have been swimmers, right? Yeah. And so if they're younger, what would you give them advice to support their kids at that young age, like in a healthy way? I
mean, obviously the number one rule is listen to your coach, but, you know, swimming is, my bias is swimming is a fantastic sport on so many different levels. Obviously, number one is it's something you can do for life, and it's fitness and it's health and it's good for you, right? But I think the other thing, you know, you can succeed. It's an individual sport, so you don't necessarily have to be in a team environment or everything like that. But I think the other beauty about swimming is that the group of people that you're surrounding yourself with, for whatever reason, and, you know, we could look at it sociologically, but that's for another time and another place. But basically, the group of people that you're, you know, your teammates and the parents and everybody that are involved, it's a group that is going to go to university, you know. And I know that may sound simplistic, but they're looking usually at being contributors to society and succeeding, to be blunt, right, on the world stage. Not necessarily the swimming stage even, but, you know, the stage of life, if you want to get, you know, philosophical. So when you're surrounded by people like that, you become like-minded, and I think you want to then, you know, fit in, be one of the group, and the group is going to university, you know, thinking big time about, you know, potential jobs, what they're going to do, how they're going to succeed, how they're going to contribute to their society, and, you know, basically be good, upstanding citizens. And I think, you know, being around that kind of environment is a real plus. Not that you can't get it in some other sports, but I think you get it in swimming for sure, and maybe at an even better occurrence than you might in some other sports.
Excellent. Thanks.
So, yeah.
Can we touch on some of the people that you've coached, I guess? I'd like to get into that. So we've briefly touched on Kylie Masse, who we'll circle back to, and we've talked about Dan Thompson. But do you remember the first person that like Dan Thompson, you kind of inherited. He was already he was one of your competitors. There was a bit of an overlap. Who was the first person that you remember that, like, you brought through that really kind of blew your mind?
That's kind of a great question.
I know.
That's why you're the man posing questions. I suppose it was I was there to induct Blair Hicken into the Swim Ontario Hall of Fame. And my comments when I inducted him, among the comments that I said, because he's a great guy, was that it was very special because he was the first one that I climbed the mountain with. And what I mean by that is he's the first one that I coached to put on the Olympic team. Yeah. And so that was very, very special. But he was pretty good coming out of high school. Right? He had been, if not the national champion, damn close. All right, the year before out of grade 12.
What was his event?
100-meter freestyle. Right, which is interesting because he's 5'10". He's a small guy, right? But 5'10", 5'11". Well, maybe 6 feet. No, but he wasn't huge, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to sell him short in case he was 5'11". Right? So he was taller than me. I'm 5'9", right? But he wasn't what you think of as your prototypical, Olympic, trials champion in the 100-meter freestyle. The Stephen Clarks that are 6'5" or 6'6", or Craig Hutchison. These big guys that we've had in the past. The current guy, Yuri Kissel, that's winning the national championships, who's 6'6", right? And Blair was definitely on the small end of it, right? He had an amazing, powerful kick, but he was pretty good coming in, right? And so it was, there was a damn good chance that he should win the Olympic trials, but at the same time, I could have screwed it up, and so there was a lot of pressure. But the guy that finished right behind him, and who won the 100-meter butterfly, the guy named David Churchill, was really an unknown. And when he came here in first year, he came here like so many kids, very smart kid out of high school, in the 80s or whatever. And he came here as the big star out of his, back then, Oakville Aquatic program. Wasn't as good as it is now, didn't have as predominant number of national level swimmers. And so he was kind of the big star coming out of Oakville. And he was good, but he was, I don't know, maybe 10th in the country? No, maybe 15th even in the country, I think, coming out of high school. So when he came here, he actually was on the verge of probably quitting by the middle of the fall because, number one, in school, what happens to every first-year student, his grades went from 85s in high school to 65s, which is the normal first-year problem at U of T. Everybody freaks, right, because they're getting hammered, and then they eventually fight their way back, right? But initially, he's not feeling real good about school. And I happen, over the years, for whatever reason, I'm a butterflyer, I guess, and maybe it happens, but I've had a whole ton of butterflyers in my stable over the years. Then, after then, and now. And so he came into a situation with Dan Thompson here, all right, who was obviously the national record holder. And I had two other guys that he didn't know, but I developed them, and they were faster than him as well. So he came in as a star swimmer, and he's here. All of a sudden, he's the fourth best butterflyer on the team. And so it was a very difficult year for David. And so, but we kept at it, and I watched, and I thought this kid is a hell of a swimmer. And this is where you sometimes have to be a little flexible. And I wasn't going to go down this road, but we might as well because it's interesting. David was a night owl. And, I don't have a lot of morning workouts. I mean, I have morning workout every day, but people don't have to make them. Usually we try to focus on maybe 2 doubles a week with our athletes. If you have class conflicts at night, obviously you have to come in the morning. But so for David, he was a night owl, and he absolutely did not want to swim in the mornings. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. All right, you're going to swim in the afternoons, but we need to get some dry land in. And back then, sometimes I was doing sort of, an hour of weights and then an easy swim in the morning for our morning workouts twice a week for the sprinters. So I said, here's what we're going to do. And I set up a pulley bench, right? Literally a bench that we built, and then we had pulleys on the wall. And I was really into pulleys back then as opposed to heavy lifting barbell weights. And we set up a room in the basement of the pool, actually. And I said, you're going to swim 4 to 6. I think we swam 4 to 6 back then. And then you're going to have dinner. And then you're going to study. And it turned out he didn't really want to study too much. He wanted to sleep. So he'd go to sleep for an hour and a half, and then he'd study for an hour. And then I said, you're going to come back to the pool at 9 o'clock at night, and you're going to do this pulley set that I set up for you. And he said, I can do that. I got no problem with that, right? And then he'd do the pulleys, and he'd do them for a half an hour. He'd do a lot of pulleys. He got very strong. And then he'd go back home, and then he'd study, and maybe hang out with his buddies or whatever until 1 or 2, and then he'd go to bed. And he did this like almost every day. And he got stronger, he got fitter, he was happy because I didn't force him to get up in the mornings, and he started to improve, and he started to improve, and he started to improve. And then sure enough, third year university, he goes to the CIs. Back then we called it the CI University Championships, and I believe he won the 100 fly. Dan had graduated by then. Won the 100 fly, won the 100 free, beat Blair, And I take that back. He won the 100 fly. He didn't win the 100 free because he was starting to get sick. And so I thought, for the greater good, I need this boy. I don't need to drill him into the ground. I need to rest him for the Olympic trials. This is fourth year, sorry, so I'm backing it up. By third year, he was starting to get better, all right? So by fourth year, we knew we could get better. And at CIs, at the University Championships, he was poised to win the 100 free, and I said, no, go home, go to bed. He was getting a cold. He was starting to really, nasally and all that kind of stuff. And we were leaving on a training camp the next day for sort of 5-day, mini-week sort of boost to get back into things before the Olympic trials. And I said, go home. So lo and behold, everybody's standing on the pool deck looking around going, where the hell's Dave Churchill? Right? Like, where do you see a coach rest a kid who could win the national title? And he probably could have reached down real deeply, and he probably would have won it. All right? But he built, bought into it with me and said, you know what? We got a bigger project ahead of us here. We got the Olympic trials in 2 months, right? So anyway, so he went to the Olympic trials, and Blair beat him in the 100 free. But then he won the 100 butterfly. And he went to the Olympic Games, made the semifinals in the 100 butterfly, just got beat by the other Canadian boy by a 10th, and the other Canadian boy then got the rights to be on the medley relay, and the medley relay won a medal.
Is that Tom Ponting?
Tom Ponting, right? And so David was that close to being on the medley relay that won a medal. He was on the 4x1 free relay with Blair and Sandy Goss and Levante. So he went ahead, and then unfortunately, that was his third year university. His second year was when he had the breakthrough got a lot better. For his fourth year university, he came and talked to me on Labor Day, the first day of school, and said, my entire goal, my entire life was to go to the Olympic Games. I've done that. I'm going to retire. To be honest, I was stunned.
Yeah.
All right? I mean, he had another year, maybe even had 2 more years of school, I can't remember, right? But he had another year, and we obviously could have used him. He's a hell of an athlete. But that was it, and he had done it, and he felt there was no other worlds to conquer. I personally felt that he could have moved up the world ranking. I think he could have been top 10 in the world easily. He was that good a swimmer, right? So, but he had other things that he wanted to pursue. So, anyway, he retired.
So that's when Churchill and Hicken are your two sort of.
I think
first sort of climb the.
They were the ones that first climbed it, and I think the next one probably was Marianne Limpert.
Yeah.
Which you'll remember, Jason.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason was that I inherited her, and she was 6th best in the country, and within 3 years I had her 6th best in the world.
Wow.
And that was a major breakthrough, it was just a really, really big effort to take somebody from that level and take them to the next level. She was driven, no question. This woman wanted to be one of the best in the world. Created at times schisms on the team because she was so driven. Because she wanted a lot of attention,
That's you hear that story time and again. You hear it. What was it? Jenny Thompson and Dara Torres.
Yeah, they were both driven. Both high maintenance, right? And I think they actually ended up having to coach one from 4 to 6 and one from 6 to 8.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't quite get to that point, right?
Yeah. But what was she like as a train? Like was she?
She trained hard. She was a great trainer. We used to call her Mach 2 because Mach 1 was a girl named Kia Poom, and what we meant by that was they hit the water, they were already going flat out, right, at the speed of sound, right?
Yeah.
It was a nickname, obviously, right? But they were going as fast as they could, right, from day one. Like, warm-up wasn't warm-up. It was how fast can I go right from the word go. And they trained really hard, and, obviously it makes a coach's job a bit easier, but... So we took Marianne right to the top. I mean, one of the best ever. And she won, gold medal at World Student Games, medals at a lot of internationals. She was young when I took her to the Olympics. She was only 18-ish, I think. All right, 18, 19, maybe 19, in Barcelona, but still was in the finals, was 6th. And the time that she did there, or her best time, she was a little off her best time there. But the time that she did to win our Olympic trials here she was 6th, sorry. But her time was only half a second slower than the time she did 4 years later to win the Olympic silver medal.
Wow.
Like the field in 92 was so rich. Off the top of my head, it was 210, 211, 212, 212.
Oh, that was...
213, 215, 216, right? She was 216, right? And then 4 years later, there was no 210, there was no 211, there's no 212, there's no 213.
Well, there was no
medal. The Irish,
that's right.
Michelle Smith,
the Irish illegal girl, drug girl, right?
Yeah.
You know, the one that tested positive, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, too far after the Olympics for her to let Marianne win her gold medal. So, so that was amazing. That it's one of the only times in history where swimming has slowed down significantly. Mind you, it was after the East German wall went down. 2 of those kids were East Germans and Chinese swimmers. So take them out of the mix, and then the times wouldn't quite have been as fast, right? But sometimes you need to also know your swimmers. Marianne was a very poor morning swimmer at that stage of her career. She got much better. She got older and stronger and stuff, right? I mean, Marianne liked to move around a lot. This was part of her high maintenance and attention deal, right? And so she usually didn't last in a program more than about a couple years, and then she moved. So she lasted with us for 4 years, which I felt was a bit of a badge of honor. And we were able to keep her excited for 4 years, right? But eventually she made her way back out east. She was from New Brunswick, and then she went to Montreal, and full marks for Claude Saint Jean, because he was able to, get her to improve. And at that point, it just, took that extra half a second, and she won a silver medal at the Olympics, and was one of the better swimmers in Canada for, kept going for many years after that. So, but at that point, when I had her, she was not very good in the morning. So in Barcelona, I met her at the pool at 6 o'clock in the morning. The heats were at 9:30-ish. I met her at the pool at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we went in and we did a full warm-up, and we did a dive 100 flat out to simulate prelims, so that then by the prelims, it was like finals, and she was actually ready to go, right? And
you don't happen to remember what that flat out time was, do you?
No. I mean, I think I disguised it a bit, with a bit of build, a bit of this, but it was an effort to tire her out. And then we brought a picnic. Because it was 45 minutes back to the village, so we didn't have time to go back to the village and turn around, right? So we basically got a little blankets and sat outside the pool, and it was a beautiful scene there, right on the hill there outside Barcelona, and had breakfast and relaxed, and then went back in and prepared for the race. And she hurt in the prelims. She hurt coming home, right? Because I think she was a little tired or whatever, right? But she was awake, and she made the finals. And I, to this day, am convinced that if we had not done that, she would have been 9th, and she wouldn't have made the finals.
Do you remember what you guys ate?
No.
At breakfast?
I love all these little
Sorry.
You were a coach on that Olympic team.
Yeah, that was an interesting situation, Jason, in that what happened was, because I do the television, it's obviously, it's all encompassing, so I can't leave the booth to go coach. But there, because of the time change, remember, this is Barcelona, Spain, so it's a 6-hour time change. So the prelims at 9 in the morning and 3 in the morning here. There was no 24-hour cable channels or anything, or internet back then, so they weren't going to broadcast it live to 3 o'clock in the morning and to 3 people that would get up at 3 and watch. So we didn't do the prelims. So I actually could go coach in the prelims if I needed to or wanted to. That being said, all the other games we did, that wasn't possible. That being said, the Olympic staff they had accreditation for 7 people until we moved out of the Olympic Village, or moved into the Olympic Village. And once we moved into the Olympic Village, 5 of those were going to be in the village, but 2 of them were going to get day accreditations to go in and watch or help. But they had to stay outside the village in a hotel they'd get or something, right? And so they went to me and said, does that work? I said, well, that's perfect. I can go all the training camps and everything, and then the day you guys move into the village is the day I got to do the commentating anyway. So this is a win-win, and I'll get the accreditation there, but I'll get the TV accreditation for the rest of the time, right? We had a stupidly long training camp, 9 weeks, right? Which is unbelievable. We can come back and talk about that stupidity. But anyway.
Probably fun for some of the swimmers.
No, it wasn't. No? It was way, way too long.
I definitely want to come back to that.
I think it cost us at the Olympics. But so then I was able to do both. Since that Olympic Games, because what happened at that, and it was at that Olympic Games, there was a reporter for, I don't know, New York Times or somebody, who got accreditation to be a coach for like the Ivory Coast or somebody like that. And so he was allowed, he showed his coaching credentials, and he'd get on the track, the warm-up track where all the athletes were, and then of course he started going, ask him all these questions and stuff with his tape recorder and everything. Well, the athletes need to be protected. They need to be, the warm-up place, they shouldn't be bothered when they get out by a reporter asking them questions. It's fair game when you finish your race and there's a reporting area where you're supposed to go talk, but not there. So the IOC passed a motion that nobody could ever have 2 credentials. You had to either be media or you had to be coaching staff or medical staff or whatever it was. So from that point on, I could never ever have done what I did. and because I always took the media accreditation, of course. But that time I could, so I went down, worked with her, went on the pool deck, we did our warm-up, and yada-da-da-da, right? And then for the finals, of course, I couldn't do it. So one of the other coaches, Dave Johnson, had to sort of take over and coach Marianne in that situation. And in the future, all my athletes that made Olympic teams, I've had somebody on every Olympic team that I've coached, that I've been, since I've been coaching, they would be assigned to one of the other coaches. Now, I know the coaches really well. I talk to them, but I couldn't do the final little prep that is so critical.
Right.
That's that was what I
training
wanted.
camp. You wanted to ask me about the
Yeah,
training camp?
circle back to the 9-week training
Okay,
camp.
well, so the problem was that the Olympic trials were May. The games were, for sake of argument, I'm going to say 6 weeks take us to June, July, early mid-July, for sake of argument. And the feeling was maybe we needed to, because everybody usually shuts the program down after the Olympic trials, we didn't want everybody to go home to their programs. There were no national centers then. There were some big programs, but we wanted everybody to go home to nobody, to nothing, to no training situation. So we go to a training camp. Well, then they said, well, if we're going to go to a training camp, why don't we just stay there and not get caught up in domestic meets and domestic programs and have a really great training situation? You have to remember that the guy in charge at this point was a guy named Derek Snelling, who was out of Vancouver, who produced lots of great swimmers and a bunch of Olympic medalists. And he loved being on the road. His nickname used to be Marco Polo, because all he wanted to do was travel the world, right? and so it worked for him, and it usually worked for his athletes, right? But this ended up being over the top. So we had decided we were going to go for 6 weeks and then fly straight to Barcelona. Actually, the training camp was outside Barcelona, right? You need to acclimatize for time change, so we go in 3 weeks ahead of the games usually. So we did 6 weeks in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because we wanted to train outdoors, which was part of the rationale of the length of the training camp, because our kids obviously we don't train outdoors in Canada, and the games were outdoors. So we need to acclimatize, 6 weeks outdoors, all right? Back then, altitude was starting to become a big deal. So half the team was going to go 6 weeks outdoors, half was going to go the first 3 weeks outdoors, and then go to altitude for 3 weeks, and then fly over to Europe and join us. Well, 6 weeks in Fort Lauderdale, and my point to the national coach at the time was, if we're going to do that, we've got to be in condos or apartments.
Yeah.
We can't be in hotel rooms. They're going to go stark raving mad, right? Well, we ended up with a great deal at this hotel right by the Hall of Fame swimming pool in Fort Lauderdale, and the dinners and everything were included, rather than being in an apartment where you had to cook your own meals, which would have been suspect for some of the kids on the team, right? So, but I mean, we could have catered, all right?
How did our entire team get scurvy?
Exactly, right? So, you know what? The first 3 weeks, I think the camp was fine. I think it was brilliant, right? I think it worked great. We were away from the distractions at home and all that kind of stuff. I thought the training was brilliant. It was great. And I think when we broke then, and the other half the team, it wasn't even half, it was probably 30% of the team went to altitude, I think it helped them. Tewksbury's one of the ones that went to altitude. Marianne went to altitude, right? So, and I didn't. I stayed with the other guys, right? Because I had some other people in this group here. So I think our guys ran out of gas a little bit. And because it was same old. It was drudgery. And we ran into some real bad weather. The altitude guys were indoors. We ran into some real bad weather. So I think 1 week we lost 2 of our workouts because of thunderstorms, and they cleared the pool and we couldn't get back in. And I felt at my wit's end by the end of it, and I think the athletes did too. We should have had breaks. If we'd have come home after that first 3 weeks, I think it would have been brilliant. It would have been amazing, right? We'd come back excited. We'd only had 3 weeks here. You could have kept the intensity up, even if some of the club kids joined your program, whatever it was, right? Then we would have gone over to Europe fresh. So now we're tired anyway, and then we end up in southern France for 3 weeks. And again, it's not a great living. This was a dorm, so it's not a great living situation. After at least we had nice hotel rooms. So the smart thing they finally did though was that the Olympics is 8 days of swimming. Tewksbury's 100 backstroke was day 7 or day 6, and so rather than going in 4 days ahead or 5, whatever it was, you want to get in and settled before the first day of swimming, the opening ceremonies. 5 guys stayed behind. Mark and the distance swimmers, and maybe there was another backstroker with him, I can't remember. And so they didn't get caught up because it's a pain in the ass. You have to take the bus to the pool, and you have to wait for the bus, and then you have to eat cafeteria food, and it just it's draining on you as an athlete to constantly do that back and forth. And the pool can be very crowded. You don't get great situation because everybody's there training, and everybody kind of wants to be there at the same time. They don't want to be there at noon because you're not going to race at noon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You want to have a nap and all that. So you're not getting an ideal situation. The pool's wavy. You can't do what you want. You're getting bored with the whole situation. It's not necessarily great sleeping, all that kind of stuff. So we kept Mark behind, and Mark came in, I think, fresh as a daisy.
Rested.
Ready to go. And you never know what's going to happen. Maybe we're not going to have a great Olympics. The first day, maybe we didn't swim that great, so he's not part of that. So just, you know what? It was a brilliant call by the coaching staff, and boy, it paid off like amazing. So it was good.
Cool.
So training camps are needed. In this case, it was interesting, but you can overdo it. Would be my point. We just got back from the Commonwealth Games, and the team went over 9, 10, 11, about 2 weeks. I felt 2 weeks probably wasn't enough for that far. So actually I sent Kylie and Eli, our other swimmer, and Penny Alexiak almost 3 weeks. I sent them a week ahead of the rest of the team. Right? Well, I didn't send them. The airplane sent them. But I made that philosophical decision and talked with the national coach, and he agreed with us, right? Yeah. And Ben Titley did the same. Not quite as early as we did, but sort of halfway in between, 2.5 weeks, because he also felt that it was good to get a little more established and just have that extra week of time change.
Get you up to the sleep.
Yeah, it's a 14-hour time change. It's brutal. And again, Kylie's never raced outdoors. I've sent her to 2 meets, one in Rome and one in California to race outdoors. In the last 2 years, knowing that 2 years later, you've got to plan ahead. I don't know if some of the coaches actually do this, but you got to plan ahead. So I knew 2 years later we were going to be the Commonwealth Games outdoors. I needed to get her some outdoor experience.
Nice.
So I wanted another week there for her to train outdoors, and we actually booked the pool time for 7 and 8 o'clock at night because the finals were going to be at 7 o'clock at night. No use training at 6 o'clock at night if you're racing at 8 and the sun's down. You got to get used to the lights, right? Yeah. So anyway, there's a bunch of that.
Awesome.
You got to plan those.
Do they get right in the pool once they get there? Do they sleep for a couple days, or do they just start?
They landed at noonish, is my recollection. It's noon or 2. So by the time you get situated and everything, you're not going to bed at 2, right? Because then you totally screw yourself up. So yeah, what you do is you hang on, do go to the pool, swim it off, get a dinner, and then try to get on that time zone immediately. So at 9 o'clock at night, go to bed.
Quick, yeah.
And then do you sleep through the night? Probably the first night because you're exhausted. Yeah. But then the challenge is usually the second and third and fourth night, right, to get on your time zone.
Going back to some of the training camps, I was always curious how those workouts go when you get the national team together, because you've got how many people, 20, 30, 40 people sometimes, and some are distance swimmers, some are sprinters, some are flyers, some are IMers, and then you get people that are coming from different programs and different styles. How do those workouts work, and like how can you cater to all of them?
Well, yeah, it's very specific. It's not like your home program where a lot of people do the same events or the same stroke or the same workouts or whatever. So what ends up happening is, for sake of argument, you have 5 coaches. Each coach would have 6 swimmers, and each coach basically gets 2 lanes. Right? Now maybe 2 coaches work together or whatever. So what you do is you design what you want for the 6 people you have, and the swimmers are basic. You try to assign the swimmers to a like-minded group. Yeah. Obviously, if I coach 6 swimmers and I coach a sprinter and a 400 IMer, well, I'm probably going to... The chances are very good I would still keep those in my little stable of swimmers, but by and large, each coach probably only has 2 or 3 that made the team. Yeah. With the odd exception of one coach that might have 6 or 7. So I'm going to end up with a couple other people in my group. Well, if I'm coaching Kylie Masse, a 100 backstroker, and Eli Wall, a 200 breaststroker, well, for the example we have now is that I didn't... Linda Kiefer is my full-time assistant coach. She works with us with me day out and day out. She knows our athletes very well. So Swim Canada has allowed her to become our coach for our swimmers instead of me. I'm the head coach, but I don't have to be that because I'm doing the media. So she is. So when she went down there, so she's got Kylie in her group. She's got our breaststroker Eli. So she ended up with Kira, the other breaststroker, female breaststroker. Yep. The other backstroker had her coach there, so she didn't come with Kylie, right? Yeah. So and Linda, but she had another breaststroker as well, right? Yeah. So that's the group that she had is similar. So in her workouts, she designs all those workouts, but then on a given day, she'll then go over to Tom Johnson and say, well, what are you doing? Or Ryan Millett, what are you doing with your group? Yeah. Maybe we can go together here, And if you're a good, I feel as a head coach, particularly the first week you're there, not maybe the last week when everybody's getting a little antsy, but the first week, do a team warm-up. Yeah. Everybody needs to get in the water and do 1,000 meters and just kind of right? So do a team warm-up and then break into groups. And you might even have, 20 of the kids do the same workout one day and then only 10 do something entirely different, So
I like that.
So I think that's how it works. It's very individualized. The coaches that are on the ball send workouts to the coach. Like, in other words, like Linda was coaching the girl named Kira Smith, and Kira Smith's coach at her home club sent an idea for the training sessions. So then Linda can look at that. You don't have to follow it. You try to, but there's going to be reasons why you got to change it around or move it. But at least you have a guide to go, because what happens if...
That's familiar, too.
Yeah, and the athlete's going to feel better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We always
nice.
do 8 200s like that, you know? As opposed to, I'm going to throw something totally new at this kid.
No.
They're a program for 48 weeks, and now all of a sudden they're getting a coach that says, oh, I really think you should do 4 dive 100s today.
Yeah.
I've never done that, So good coach, I mean, by the time you're on the national team, you kind of know those things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think in the old days, there's a little bit of my way or the highway.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot more intelligence going on now.
Yeah.
So.
And you had mentioned with the passes with the media and the coaching. Was that a tough decision to?
No, it wasn't. That's I've been asked that question a lot, Jason.
Yeah.
You're coaching these athletes and you're pretty close to them.
Yeah.
Do you not want to be on the Olympic staff and be on these teams? I was head coach for, the Pan Pacs, the World Student Games 2 or 3 or 4 times. So I did sort of my head coaching job and duties and all that. And the Olympic staff in '92 was nice. But I guess part of my philosophy in life is that you also got to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love coaching. It's amazing. It's so much fun. And I don't feel, the story I always tell people is that most people dread going Mondays because they dread going to work. I look forward to Monday because it means I get to go back to the pool. I love it, right? Like I gear for it on Sunday. I'm bored on Sunday. I want to get back at it,
That's
right?
awesome.
So I really like coaching a lot, but I also really love doing the television.
Yeah.
And so I can do all my coaching and just miss 1 week of coaching.
Yeah.
And then still also be able to enjoy that other part of my life, which is the television.
I can understand that. I love talking. I like public speaking, and I don't know if you remember, but you had me announcing swim meets.
That's right.
In university.
You were great at it, and you were good at it.
I loved it. I don't know if I would be doing this
didn't know that.
podcast if I wasn't doing that announcing. And in Korea, we were talking before the podcast started. For a short time, I had a radio show in Korea too,
cool.
and I loved it. It's the most fun I've ever had, and
You're meant to do this. I'm telling you.
I love it. So
Swimming and the podcast.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But it's fun. I mean, it's an interesting medium, obviously, right? And part of me, and I think it's just plain outright fun, but I think part of me also means that because I've been able to do a fairly good job at it, I can sell the sport.
Yeah.
And people then are excited about swimming as opposed to, it's just swimming. I can sell
You
it, I can
absolutely-
identify the kids.
you
know,
have.
so,
You
know,
have.
And I feel that's, other people hadn't done it that way, but I felt it's really critical to have information about each swimmer, because it
resonates.
it personifies them, whatever, right? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, that's not just a kid in lane 4. That's
Yeah.
a kid that,
Yeah.
right? And,
I love hearing that
I
stuff.
do
little
too.
pieces,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And they didn't used to do that before,
No.
right? I did it,
Yeah.
and
The
I
background.
just felt that that's important. And the problem is, of course, it's brutally difficult to do that, right? You got to spend a lot of time. It's a little easier now with the internet.
Yeah.
All right. In the old days, it was really hard to find that stuff out. You got to talk
Yeah.
to a lot of people, and I had note cards I kept on 1,000 athletes, right?
Yeah.
And I'd update them, and it was hairy to keep on
Yeah.
top of all of that, right? I have to admit, it is a lot easier nowadays, right? On both ends of the spectrum. Number one, just the information that I can even access today on the internet,
Yeah.
right? But more importantly, when you sign up to go to the Olympics, you're at the Olympics. You've got to fill out a bio form, and they put it online, and it's pretty good now.
Yeah.
I mean, in
So
the old
you-
days, it was useless. There'd be a bio form in Los Angeles in the Olympics, and it would say, goes to school. That's it.
Just picture like a quiet Russian is just a check mark. Like,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
it's
And for anybody who wasn't from an English-speaking country, you got nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You got nothing. You
Yeah.
know, and I just didn't want a hometown. I actually sometimes just wanted an age.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a 26-year-old from Moscow. That works for me. You
Yeah.
know, right? But if I can get more information, that's great. The one that pleased me the most, right? But of all my background informations was that a girl. Oh Christ! Now I'm drawing a blank on her name. I can't believe it. Right? I know this so well. Anyway.
Tell me the race of the year. I might know it.
200-meter freestyle. All right. Silver medalist from France. And
Camille.
no, before her. One right before her.
Laura
Athens.
Manadou.
No, before her. She was 400 free.
Yeah.
It'll come to me. Anyway, and she was from Toulouse. All right. But she got transferred. Her dad got transferred down to the Congo.
Wow.
when she was little. So she learned to swim in the Congo River. And I thought,
Wow.
what swimmer at the Olympic Games, poised to win a medal, is going to learn to swim in the Congo River? And I'm going, Toulouse is the head of Air France. I'll bet you her dad was an executive with Air France, and that's why she went down to the Congo. So I went in, searched. That's exactly the reason I went down there, is her dad got transferred, and he was in charge of Air France developing Africa. And then she moved back, and then she started training and was able to win the silver medal.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
So that's unique, right? A lot of other people don't have unique things to say, right? But even if they've got a little thing to say that they grew up here, they did this or whatever.
Well, I love how you get into everything. So you get into the background of them, you know where they're from. But what I find really interesting is you'll talk about their race strategy. So you must the amount of information. I think I know a lot, right? And then I think about as you're announcing the race strategy. There's no way that's on paper because you're not gonna have on paper that this person goes out fast and then they're gonna they die on the third 50, but they come back on the fourth.
You're very right about that. One of the producers came to me once and it was the 200 free in '92 actually in Barcelona, right? And the East Germans, now Germany. No, wait a minute.
92 was Nicole Hazlett, Franziska Van
Almsack, right? And so Van Almsack should win.
Yeah.
All right.
She wasn't East German though, was she?
She was East German, yes.
I didn't know that.
Okay. She's an East German, and the East Germans were still East Germany at '92. No, it was a combined Germany then.
Yeah.
Right. The wall came down in '89. So, but she was too late, and she was too young in '88. They wouldn't let her compete. She was like 13 or something, right?
Yeah.
And when she was 14, they wouldn't even let her go to Europeans because they said you're too young, right? You know. Well, the problem was she was by far the best 200-meter freestyler in the world. She held the world record.
Yeah.
But she had hardly ever raced outside East Germany. And so I just said, this girl should win easily, but I don't know if she knows what she's doing, you know? And so sure enough, Nicole Hazlett, the American, went right over to the lane line to drag off of her. And Hazlett, being the young little puppy that she, Van Almsack, being the young little 16-year-old puppy she is, says, okay, I'll move over.
Yeah.
And I'll race you, right? You know? And Hazlett, of course, didn't go right with her. She stayed behind at her hip. So poor Van Almsack is dragging this American girl for 3 lengths. And then in the last length, Hazlett slingshots past her and beats her, right?
And I remember that. So Van Almsack's time from prelims would have tied her for the gold.
And her world record would have easily won the gold, right?
Yeah.
So then you go 4 years later, all right, and you go to Athens, Atlanta.
Atlanta, yeah.
And Van Almsack's back again, all right? And in the meantime, she has gone to different meets and everything, and she's won most of them, but she hasn't been able to win. I'm trying to remember. I might be off by an Olympics. I think she actually stuck around long enough to go to Sydney. Anyway.
She did. She went to all 3.
Yeah, so it was Sydney that I'm talking about, right? Because she went to Athens, same thing happened. She was silver medal, and she should have won the gold. She had the world record. Like, she basically held the world record for the better part of 10 years, but didn't have an Olympic gold. So now, she's by far the best one going into Sydney. And the producer asked me, he says, you going to predict a silver medal again here, Byron? I said, yep. All right, okay. Wow. I said, the girl doesn't know how to win. Right? Wow. She doesn't know how to win, and she's the best by far, but there's demons there, and sure enough, she got beat.
Oh, man.
She had a ton of medals, because she medaled in the 100 free, she medaled in the
relay,
she just didn't know how to win on the big show.
But she won the Europeans, but she couldn't.
But not on the big stage.
Well, and that was the point with Penny Alexiak in the 100 free at the Olympic Games in Rio. And I had said that Kate Campbell has, bombed, and I watched this girl swim in the summer of 2008, and I was blown away. And I said, this girl's going to win. Nobody's even heard of her. She's 16. She's going to go to the Olympic Games, and she's going to win the Olympic gold medal. All right? She is that good because she's got a long stroke. She's 6 feet 1. I mean, she had everything. Yeah. She went to the Olympic Games, favored to win the gold medal in the 50 and the 100. Freestyle, didn't even make the final, I think, in the 100. And in the 50, she finished 3rd. So 4 years later, after succeeding in the interim, right, winning Commonwealth and whatever it was, right in the middle, then she goes to London. Well, probably had the world record at the time, right? It's favored to win. I don't think she made the podium again in the 100-meter freestyle. And in the 50-meter freestyle, I think she did okay. I can't remember what it was, right? It wasn't the gold medal, though, I don't think, right?
No, because London was Renomi.
Right, Jojo, right? Won both the 50 and the 100, right? So now we've had the girl who's really been the fastest girl in the world now for 5 years, 2000, in essence 2007, 2008 through to 2012. Well, then she steps it up in 2013, 14, 15, and she's almost unstoppable. Yeah. I mean, she's amazing. She's dropping the world record, looking amazing. Have to admit, everybody should have seen it coming. Had a little bit of a glitch in 2015 and got beat by her sister at the World Championships. Still won the 50, no problem, right? And then she goes into the Olympic Games, and I kind of went, she looks invincible, but
Not a
you know,
winner.
we've had 2 bad Olympics in a row here. I just don't know if this girl's going to be able to do it, right? And then the opening night in the relay, she goes out of her mind, and I'm going, you know what? Maybe the demons are finally gone. Nope.
Yeah.
Right? Gets up in the 100 free, goes out like a scared jackrabbit, too fast.
Yeah.
And at 90
Died.
meters, she's got nothing in the tank, fades to either 6th or 7th. I can't remember what it was, right?
Right.
You know? And she admitted later that as she's getting ready for the final in the ready room, she reaches text, and the text says, "All of Australia is counting on you to win."
Oh, man.
Oh, you shouldn't be allowed to have a phone.
I know.
That's
That's
cr-
bad planning. The coaches should have taken
Yeah.
the phone away, right?
Yeah.
And she admitted that it absolutely
Oh.
freaked her out. Right?
Yeah.
She had to wait to the country, and she did,
Yeah.
but she didn't need to know that. Right?
Yeah.
No.
You know, there are just some people that just don't get over it, right? And she's one, and I feel for her because she's a wonderful athlete and a wonderful person, right? And now, look what just happened in the Commonwealth Games. She split faster than any human female has ever split in the world. 51 flat for 100-meter freestyle. I mean, that would have beat Mark Spitz at the Olympic Games almost, right? Back years ago. So, I mean, she's in another sphere. There's no one that can beat this girl when she's on, right? 5 days after that race, in the 100-meter freestyle individual event, she gets beat.
Yeah.
All right? Her sister goes right by her on the finish and beats her. I would be stunned if this girl makes it to the Olympic Games. And yet she should easily, hands down, win the Olympic gold medal.
In her defense, her sister's pretty amazing too.
Oh, no, absolutely. But her
Right.
sister went 5/10 slower than Kate's ever gone. That Kate's gone 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
you got to be close. At an international competition, you got to be close to your best time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you really do, right? So anyway, so you know what? It played into Penny's favor at Rio, and you know, lucky for Canada, lucky for Penny, and
Yeah.
you know, right place, right time, and
Yeah.
being an international sport, that's what it's all about. And I try to tell my hockey friends that you guys just don't get it. All right, like this is like telling Sidney Crosby, if you want to prove you're the best, you can prove it at the 19-minute mark in the 7th game of the Stanley Cup on one shift. And if you have a bad shift, then for the next 4 years, we're going to tell you suck. All right?
Yeah.
You know? Like, it's just
It's a good
you know, the
analogy.
pressure and the ability to do it once in 4 years on one chance for 1 minute is staggeringly difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's really hard.
Well, you've touched on Penny a couple times there, but I wanted to circle back to Kylie now.
Sure.
Your swimmer.
Excellent.
So, how amazing is she? Because you think about like that 100 back where she went, it was 58.1, right?
Yes.
Is that the right time? So that was not the last, but that was one of the last kind of tech suit
Yes.
records for women.
Yes, it was.
And she, you know, she snuck under it by a couple hundredths of a second, but that was an unbelievable swim. Like how crazy was that to watch? Was that expected?
Yeah, well, yes, it was expected, to be honest. Right? I mean, that was the goal, but
Yeah.
you know, we didn't sort of publicize it at a high level. But the tech suits were amazing. Obviously, you know, we had the nationals here that year. And
I hated them.
and they broke 63 national records. Okay,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, normally in a year you're lucky if you break 5. Right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that was absurd. I mean, it for those of the listeners that don't understand, is these suits were basically rubber. They made you float. So all that energy you put into trying to keep yourself high in the water and get better leverage in the water and your pull and your kick disappeared. You didn't have to do that anymore, so you could spend all your energy just going forward with less resistance, and so everybody just flew. And there's still a bunch of records that haven't been touched, you know.
Especially on the men's side.
On the men's side, they're unbelievable because what happened is when you're big, and I mean big, huge, strong guy, you sink like a stone, and so you're spending an inordinate amount of energy just trying to keep yourself up so you can get reasonable leverage, and you pay a hell of a price for that, and of course then you die and you fade and your time isn't very good. Well, with these suits, these guys were, you know, Arnold Schwarzeneggers. I mean, they were massive and didn't hurt them. So they, of course, could propel themselves through the water, and the times were just ungodly. So
Yeah, a
so
couple
the
of
records
those
were
couple of
just-
those French guys
Oh my
were
God,
like
they were professional weightlifters.
Yeah.
Right. So it screwed up the whole sport. All right. It meant you could succeed without actually training really hard, and I'm glad we got rid of them. I mean, it was a tough thing, but you know, they lasted a few years. But so you know, guys like Michael Phelps, that wouldn't have helped because he was great anyway. You know, and sure, it kept him better than the others because everybody else is wearing the suits. But you know, his coach and others were some of the ones that said, get rid of the damn suits. You know, so. But anyway, so those records were really tough to beat. So Kylie comes to us, and people may not know this, but she was not a star out of high school. She even admits that it was tough at times because a lot of kids were going by her and getting medals and being big successes in her club, in her area, and she wasn't. She was good, but she wasn't real good. And she was doing other sports till she was, I think, 12 or something, or 11 or something. Answers your question 7 hours ago when we first started this. So, but eventually, the family built an ice rink in the backyard, right? A little Canadiana, all right? And they put little lights on it. And Dad flooded it every night and, scraped it down and everything because they had an open lot next to them where they grew up. And all the neighborhood kids came and they played hockey every night, till 9 o'clock at night or whatever it was, right? So she started like that, but then eventually got a little better in swimming and did swimming. So when we recruited Kylie to come here, I think in her grade 12 years she made one Swim Ontario tour team, and it was a tour team where all the best kids didn't go, which is how she got to go, because she wasn't one of the best or anything, but she got to go down to Charlotte, North Carolina for a competition down there. And she went 102.7 in the 100-meter backstroke. And the reason that resonates is that now she's going 58. Swimmers usually don't improve 4 seconds.
It's closer to 5 at this
seconds.
point.
Yeah, that's right, 5 seconds. All right, from age 17 on. And so she came to us in that fall, and she was, the good news was she absolutely loved swimming and she loved racing. It's something that, her coach Andre instilled in her in her home program in Windsor. She had pretty good technique, and she just absolutely loved racing. Didn't back down, wasn't afraid, and looked forward to racing. And that's something you can't necessarily teach. Some kids are, have that in them, and then you foster it, and it becomes really a part of them. So the other part was that we felt that she had some areas that she really needed to improve on. Number one, I wouldn't say a late mature, but a bit of a late mature. So she was still going to grow a little bit, but had a great capacity to gain some strength. And so they hadn't really done much strength work at all where she was. So we put her on a pretty good strength program, and she started gaining strength. By month, she started getting stronger and better and stronger and better and stronger and better, and refined her technique a little, but it was good to start with, and improved her kick a lot. She had a very weak kick when she came. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure I've told Kylie this.
Surprise!
When she came for her recruiting visit, which we can talk about in a second because it was unique, we did a kick set. And Ben Titley at that time, the National Center was based here because they hadn't built the new pool yet. It was opening a year later, I think. So the national team was here. So Ben was here as well, and so he was watching her train as well because we brought her in because we felt, we were trying to build up the team. And she couldn't keep up. She couldn't keep up to the other kickers. Now, it was magnified by the fact that we had Katrine Savard in here that weekend as well as a recruit. And Katrine Savard, for those of you out there that are swimmers, the next day went 5 100s kick long course on 1:30 and averaged 125. I mean, that's a hell of a kick set, right? So nobody's going to look good kicking next to this girl, all right? It just magnified the fact that Kylie's kick was weaker, and both Ben and I looked at it and said, I don't know if this girl's going to be good enough for the National Center, because I don't know, if she can't kick any better than that, I just don't know if she's got a big upside, right? But it looks like it's good enough that maybe we can improve it, And sure enough, when she came, we worked on it. It's got a lot better now. She's a pretty good kicker, right? So, but that was sort of the key thing that we started to improve, and then it was just simply getting better and better, and being comfortable racing, and being comfortable racing better people, and then going faster, and we got very lucky. And what I mean by that is, in her first year, she didn't win the CIs in her first year. She went 101. Well, she went 101.5, I think, 100-meter backstroke.
And that's short course, right?
That was long course. Oh, no, that was long course. It was okay, right? But I mean, still, she improved her time. That was only 1.2 seconds or something better. Yeah. And then went to the Pan American Games trials. Yeah. And of course, this was a big deal, obviously, right? This was going to be her going into the Pan Ams. Could she make the team or whatever? And she drops her best time another second in the prelims. This is only 5-6 weeks after the University Championships. So now she goes a minute point, I think it was 2. Minute point 2. So, in 12 months, not even 12 months, we've dropped her best time, 2.5 seconds. So she qualifies first. She's in lane 4. Not a great way to start your striving to be on the national team, because you don't belong in lane 4 in your mind. Most kids, when they first go, I've always said it's a 4-year process. You start in the outside lanes in the consoles in your first year, move to the middle of the console in your second year, move to the outside lanes in the final in your third year, and then move to the middle lanes in your fourth year. It's how long it usually takes to be a major player on the national team. And so this girl's going from the outside lanes in the console the year before to boom, lane 4 in the final, 8 months later. So, and what happened?
Now, at this point, do you know there's something special?
Yes, now we know that. Yeah, now we know we got a player here.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, and we'd seen some stuff in workouts that looked like, you know what? I do a favorite set of mine that I can talk about in a second, but it kind of is a bit of a rehearsal for hundreds, and it looked like, whoa, you know what? We got something here, and I know she's a good racer. So anyway, all of a sudden she drops in a whale of a time here, all right, in the prelims. She's got 2 very veteran women next to her in lane 3 and lane number 5. Dominique Bouchard is in lane number 5, and Hillary Caldwell is in lane number 3. The other way around, sorry. Bouchard is in 3 and Caldwell is in 5. All right, I was thinking about the Olympic trials where they were the other way.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the Pan Am Games trials. It was a big games, obviously. It's in Toronto. It's going to be at home, et cetera, et cetera. So we even did a training camp out there for a week right before so we could get used to the pool. All right, moved out there, got a hotel out there and everything. And just, little things that I say you need to take care of if you want your athlete to make it to the next level. So in the finals, Kylie gets beat by both girls, finishes 3rd. Goes a minute point 4 or 5, I think, right? Her time, I don't think would have made it. I think both girls went under her time, but regardless, she finishes 3rd. Somewhat devastating to most athletes, not to her. She took it very well. More devastating to the coaches, probably. But again, we can't be that disappointed. We've made gigantic strides here.
Sure.
We know these 2 women are getting old, and eventually they're going to retire. So, but we watched the video, and the video, she outswam both these women. She got annihilated on the start, and she really got annihilated on the turn. And that was the entire difference. So for the next, luckily, and I mentioned earlier that we got a real break. The break was she then got to go to the World Student Games, and because she missed the Pan Am Games, but she was the best university age student. So we went to the World Student Games, and we did nothing. Well, not nothing, but we focused on improving her start. We did way more starts, and we worked on getting into the wall quicker and coming out way quicker with her breakout. And she historically would only do 1 kick off the wall, believe it or not, and only about 2 or 3 on the start. So we started, obviously expanding that, making it bigger because her kick now is better. Now that part of the reason was she didn't have a very good kick, remember, out of high school.
Right.
So we've got a better kick now, so we can afford to stay under the water longer, right? We still don't stay under the water as long as others for reasons that I can address in a minute. But so we got better at doing that, better at the breakout and everything. And so we worked on that, and we asked her to work on that. And so now the maturity level is showing because she goes to the World Student Games without me and without Linda, with a new coach that she's never worked with before, and with not a very long time change adjustment to Korea. They went in. Anyway, I'll talk about the adjustment, all right? And she goes in, and she goes 59.9 in the finals, right? She goes, I think, a minute point 5, a minute point 2, and then 59.9 in the final. Improves from prelims to semis to finals, which becomes a little bit of her
track record.
Yes, her track record. It's a very amazing track record, to be honest, right? So she's 59.9. Well, now she's a player because she just beat what those other 2 girls did, right? That would have been silver medal at the Pan Am Games, Now it's a gold medal down there, which is even cooler, right? But more importantly, she's now in the top whatever in the world, top 10, top 15, whatever. We now are bona fide, have a shot, and we don't have to go in scared to death into the Olympic trials because obviously the 2 veterans are going to be there again.
Right.
All right. And then somebody else went really fast later in the summer. I can't remember who it was. So that was a bit scary too. So there were going to be, Brooklyn Snodgrass from Calgary, who was going to school at the University of Indiana, went 59.9 the summer before at Pan Pacs. So there were basically 3 girls along with Kylie, and if she's a minute point 2 and then a minute point 5 at the, at the finals at the Pan Am trials, we're really on the outside looking in. Well, now we're 59.9. We're on the inside looking in. We got a real bona fide shot. Now, it means there's going to be a lot of pressure, but we got a bona fide shot. So that was a big sort of breakthrough for her at that point. Now we get ready for the Olympic trials, and, we're doing lots of things. And then she rips off of a 59. She goes a 59. I'm going to say low. I can't remember exactly what it was. 59.5, all right? She goes to 59.5 at a meet here long course in January and goes to Switzerland at a meet that I like going to and does the same thing. So all of a sudden now we're going, the 59.9 is okay, but we've now repeated it twice without a taper and a shave. So we should be able to go low 59 come the Olympic trials. And the workouts that we're doing are indicating maybe we can go that fast. So we go to the Olympic trials, and sure enough, she goes 59 flat in the morning. And then there's a little more stress at night, and she equals, I think she might have got a 10th or 100th faster or something at night and rebroke the Canadian record.
Still
and
faster.
Wins the Olympic trials. And now 59 flat at that point is like 3rd or 4th in the world, right?
Yeah.
And as it turns out, just the Americans have their trials and somebody else does. So I think she goes in maybe seated 5th or 6th in the Olympic Games. And then just does the same thing, does the prelims, then the semis, then the finals, and goes 58 high and ties for the bronze medal. I mean, who would have predicted that?
That's amazing. Going back to your favorite set, does it happen to be the Thompson trots?
No, it's not. Okay. For those that didn't hear the interview with Dan, this is, and again, these are little things that I think as a coach you've got to figure out, and you know, pat ourselves on the back if we want. But Dan in 1983 was 25 or 6 years old. Was hanging on by a thread both physically and I would argue mentally. You know, he got screwed in 1980. There was no Olympics when he was number 2 in the world. He got kind of, you know, that was his prime. He'd won gold medals at the Commonwealth Games in 78, gold medals in 82 at the Commonwealth Games. So, you know, he's one of the best butterflyers in the world, but he's running out of gas at this point. Physically, his body's sort of failing him. And so we had to figure out how to motivate him to train hard and at the same time not overtrain him. So I did 2 things that, you know, are quite unique. Well, one thing that's very unique. And that was, we said, you're going to swim, this is in the winter, we're going to swim Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we're going to swim hard, but we're just going to swim once a day. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to ski. You're going to go up to the chalet that his family owned up in Collingwood area, and you're going to ski. And when Dan skied, Dan didn't ski like a lot of people where you just kind of, you know, sloosh, sloosh, sloosh down the hill. Dan went from the top.
Skier there.
Right? Dan was at the top of the hill, and he went down as fast as he bloody well could. He just thumped it all the way down, right? And there's an intensity involved in that, right? So basically, in swimming parlance, it's basically, how long does it take to go down a hill? 20 seconds? I don't know, 30 seconds?
Collingwood, yeah, 25
seconds, right? So it's basically going 20 flat-out 50s on 10 minutes because, you know, then he's got to go ski over, get on the ski ride or the ski lift, go up to the top of the hill, all the way back down again, right? And that's basically how Dan skied, right? Yeah. So he's doing quality efforts on his legs. And we did that in 83. We went to the Winter Short Course Nationals, and Dan had the best back-end 50 he's ever had, and it was all legs because his legs were stronger than they'd ever been before because of that skiing.
Amazing.
And he came back. My normal rule of thumb is that if your back-end 50 is within 3 seconds of your first 50, then you're going to have a hell of a swim as a butterflyer. That's my rule of thumb, short course. Long course, it's about 3.5. But so 3.0 seconds drop off, first 50 to second 50 is the key. True drop-dead sprinters are going to be 3.5 or 4, and 200 flyers are usually less, and it's why they just don't have the speed to get out. It's why they usually don't succeed in the 100, right? So Dan was usually a 3.5. Well, this time, he was a 3.01. It might have been 2.99, I think. I can't remember, right? But he tied the world record.
This was the 53-1, right?
53-1, yeah, when he tied the world record.
He said that. He I think he came back 27.99.
Yeah.
He went out in a 25, right?
Yeah. So 2.99 coming back, right? And that was the key, right? Because he had his legs, right?
Yeah.
But about the Thompson trot, I needed some other thing to sort of just make fun of workouts. And so we decided, you know, warm-up is warm-up. You can only do warm-up so many different ways before it gets boring, okay? And you want their heart rate up a little. That's the ideal if you can do it. So those of you who have never been to the University of Toronto pool, we have a small little teach pool next to our 50-meter pool, and it's only about 1.5 feet deep, 2 feet, 1.5 feet, and it's about 15 yards long, 12 yards long, 12 meters long. And so what we decided was we would start actually at the 25-meter on the bulkhead, and we'd swim one length freestyle, and it didn't matter what lane you were in, you had to get out, run over to the teach pool, and then run 6 laps of the teach pool, run back to your lane, and then swim a 25-meter butterfly back to the bulkhead. And you had to do this in 2 minutes.
Grueling.
2 minutes and 10 seconds. And unbelievably, the team loved it. They still love it. Well, I wouldn't say they love it, but I mean, they like the difference that it is.
Has Kylie done it?
Right? Oh, yeah. We do it regularly on the team, right? I still do it, you know, several times.
They love it. They love it.
Yeah.
Then,
I don't know.
Once a year, right? The problem is, you know, I learned this very quickly after the first couple times we did it, is that obviously the people in lane 1 and 2 get in the pool first, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and eventually they run behind and they catch up. So they all jump in the pool, but they then start a circle going. And you end up with a whirlpool, and the people that are in the back, they're not working at all. All right, so then I have to yell at the athletes and make them go straight up and down and not do a little circle, and then I get the work that I want. But I have them take their heart rates when they finish the running of the teach pool before they jump back in the water. And their heart rates inevitably are always around 180. You will not get that in a warm-up, in a normal warm-up, right? So it's a really, part of it's because you're using your legs, the big muscles, and you know they suck up a lot of energy and oxygen, right? But still, it's 180 for the warm-up. So we do that 5 times usually, right? And when I taper, I bring it down to 4, then I bring it down to 3.
Yeah.
All right. So so that's our Thompson trot named
Cool.
for Dan Thompson.
Yeah.
So,
well, thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
And okay, getting back to Kylie quickly, and then we'll move on.
Yeah,
so,
sorry,
no, that's good.
I
it's fine. But I'm just thinking. So the Commonwealth Games, they're done, and they're earlier than we normally have a big meet.
Yep.
What's coming up for her?
So I mean, so then part of the question actually was, did we expect the world record, right?
Yeah.
Last summer, right? And so, she won the Olympic bronze medal, which reduces a phenomenal amount of pressure, actually, because now we don't have to spend 4 years wondering about doing everything right so we can win an Olympic medal. We've already got the Olympic medal. Yeah. Obviously, we'd like to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal, but I mean, we've got a medal now. So that's a huge, huge step for an athlete, right? It reduces so much pressure in many senses. So now we're kind of free to go where we got to go and what we got to do, right? So we're looking at that, and I'm saying the world record's 58.2. You went 58.6, 58.7. We can get the world record probably. Let's go for it. All right, so we started in September. Our full goal that entire year was to break the world record in 2017. And we felt that we probably needed to be out a little bit quicker, but more importantly, we needed to come back quicker. We needed to come back under 30 seconds. If we could come back under 30 seconds, then, nobody in the world's ever done that, then we're going to be able to break the world record. So our focus was a lot more on the back end than it was the front end. And remember I said that she lost the Pan Am berth because she kind of hurt at the start and the turn, but I should have actually mentioned, I'm sorry, that her closing was weak. She'd just do about the same. Well, in today's world, you can't just keep up the same. You've got to pick up your stroke rate at the end. You've got to be accelerating at the finish. And so we did nothing but work on that before the World Student Games. She accelerated away from the field. The American came to her at about 65 meters, and then Kylie just accelerated away the last 20 meters. And
must be great to see.
Amazing.
To go back and see that there's
a progression.
But there's progression, but to go back and see that she was third.
Yep.
And then think, oh my God, there's a ton of things that we can improve on.
That's also good news. Yeah. Obviously, if we're third and we can improve on that, we can be first. Yeah. So, as opposed to we did everything right. I don't know how we're moving up. So you're right. Yeah. So and then so we worked on it. And then at the Olympic trials, the World Championship trials, we were actually shocked that she almost got the world record. She went 58.2 there. Yeah. And the reason we were shocked was that she had real issues with her knee. You're pushing these bodies to their fine edge, and they get hurt. Some of them. Some kids are so resilient, it's unbelievable. But a lot of them are going to get little bruises here and there. She popped the rib out Olympic year right after the CIs, and we were actually very worried that she might even be able to go to the Olympic trials. And we have great medical people here. Jason Meehan is our head therapist, and he was able to work wonders with her. And we did miss some training. We couldn't lift any weights in that 5 weeks. And so, we were a little worried, but, again, having gone the low 59, the stuff in season, we thought she'd be okay at the Olympic trials, and she was. And then the next year, she's got real problems and hasn't been able to really kick on her one leg going into the CIs, and then it's even worse going into the trials. So bottom line is we kind of spent the year without 100% preparation. So I just felt that, she wasn't going to be 100% there, and I'd just be kind of happy if we were out at the same time. And then she drops in a 58.2, and it's like, okay, we're ready. Now if we can do that and we're not 100%, then come the games, we should be able to get under that, And she did by 2 100s, 8 100s, and 9 100s, whatever it was, right? She improved her time by a few hundreds each time. And then at night, if you noticed, there's a 3-way tie at 85 meters. And then she just does her classic step it up and pull away, and she won the gold medal and broke the world record, which was great. So now to what's the plan now? She goes to the Commonwealth Games, and for whatever reason, she wasn't really able to lift very well the last 20 meters. It's one of the few times that we've not quite been able to follow the race plan. Yeah. And her back end 50 was 30 point, I think, 1 or 2, which is slower than she was 3 or 4 times in 2016, 2017. So there are lots of issues. It was outdoors. It's dark, light. There's many different reasons for it. But it's why I think we weren't able to get down to, and we knew that going in. We said the world record actually isn't something we're aiming for here. We're just aiming to do a good race and hopefully get the gold medal, because the outdoor conditions can really confuse things. Right. So she comes home from that, and your question, Jason, now is, what do we do? How do we prepare for this summer, which is the Pan-Pacific Championships?
Yeah. Where are they this year?
They are in Tokyo.
All
right. So first off, I told her she couldn't come home. She had to stay in Australia. Right? I said, you're in a holiday, girl. Right? You know? And the university situation in Canada is a very good one, much better than the NCAA in the United States in terms of special circumstances. And because they knew that we had one. No, we had 2. We had Eli as well. And UBC had 3 or 4, and Montreal had 1, I think, or whatever. Kids going to Commonwealth Games, well, they're going to be away for a month. Yeah. They're not going to be successful students. So do you really want them to go through the charade of enrolling in 3 or 4 courses and then dropping them all the day after the university championships. And then having to take so much summer school to get back and be eligible for the following year. So the governing body says, you know what, we'll let you guys go to school part-time. Take one course, you're good to go, right? And so that's what Kylie did,
Beautiful.
right? And so, she did not have to, I didn't want her on the blocks going, okay, I want to win this, but I also got an essay due Thursday, and I got 2 exams the day I get back. We didn't want that, right? And so Eli the same. He went down to only one course. He could have graduated tomorrow, right? This week. But he chose not to, and he's going to then go to summer school and actually take a course in the fall and finish them because he wanted to be able to focus on the swimming as well. So for Kylie, she took that one course. So when the games are over, we got her exam pushed back, so it's April 27th. So I told her she had to see, how many times do you go to Australia? Not very often, right? And so luckily her family went over as well. So they spent an extra day or two in the Gold Coast, and then they went up to the Barrier Reef, and then they went down to Sydney and somewhere else, right? So she comes home, I think it'll be 9 days or something, right? And then she is going to have to study for a few days and write that exam, right? Then we go to altitude, which we've done now with Kylie. This will be the 4th time, I think, maybe, to altitude with Kylie. I cannot prove that it works, but we can talk about it in a second if you want. One of the reasons maybe it works. But so we'll go to altitude, and then we'll come down, and then I will take her to the meet that I like going to, the American Pro Series meet down in Santa Clara, California, so she can race some of the best. The girl that beat her by 100th at the Olympics for the silver, won the silver medal. Kylie was the bronze medal. She's down at school down there, so we can race her because you got to race the best to keep you motivated. And then we go to the Pan Pacific Championships, and the goal there will be to try to do a best time, which would, of course, then mean maybe breaking the world record.
We're going to see a 57 this year?
The goal would be to go, there's no reason not to aim to go your best time by more than you don't want to aim to beat your best time by 100th of a second. You want to try to do the things that are right to improve your best time by a few tenths of a second if you can.
Unless you're rolling mats.
That's right.
Go rewind a couple hours,
East
folks.
German that can just sort of touch and improve by a tenth each time. That would be the goal would be to improve by a few tenths if you can, and the way to do that is to get a little bit stronger and bigger. And therefore maybe you can go out a couple tenths of a second quicker, and then still come back with that under 30, and then you're gonna have that ability to go fast, right? So
great,
amazing.
Right.
And I know we're almost 3 hours in. I know you got somebody coming.
Okay, I'll just finish off.
I'll keep going.
Okay.
No, you gotta prepare.
We'll go a little bit longer.
And
the quick talk about altitude is very simple. That a lot of the best do it. So can it really be that wrong if a lot of the best do it? All right. I don't understand the hematocrits and hemoglobin and all this kind of stuff. They say that it stimulates the production of EPO, which is what all the illegal cyclists on the Tour de France and all that kind of stuff use illegally. They get it injected, right?
Right.
But your body produces it, and supposedly when you're at altitude, it forces you to produce a little bit more of that, which stimulates the growth of red blood cells. But in theory, in true scientific analysis, they tell me that your red blood cells only last for 28 days, and then they're toast. They're done, right? Well, we never race our big meets because I don't want to gamble that close to, because altitude also screws you up. You hurt big time for a point of time when you come down from altitude. So I don't want to gamble for a big meet that I timed it wrong. So we actually don't go to the big meets till at least usually 6 weeks and sometimes 8 to 12 weeks after. So in theory, we're getting no benefit, right? Okay, scientifically, because all any stimulation of red blood cells we should have are gone. So we're just testing the body to train harder, because it's tough to train at altitude. It's like
you're not getting as much oxygen to your muscles for recovering,
right? And so then you're not getting recovery. It'd basically probably be like swimming with nose plugs on and tape over half your mouth, right? Geez, you're not getting the oxygen. So it's a lot of pain. So it's motivational. It's also a good way to start the season, Jason. As I said, we're just getting back from Australia.
Yeah.
Nice
Starting
change.
up is always a bit boring, you can't work hard or whatever, so we're going to be at altitude. There's a beautiful place an hour south of Flagstaff where we go called Sedona, Arizona, which if you Google it, it's one of the most beautiful spots on the earth. It's got all these red rocks and formations and stuff, and so we actually go up and we hike the rocks some of the times and train in an outdoor pool a couple times, and it's just different and unique, and it's a good situation. So Michael Phelps does it, Katie Ledecky, the best are doing it, and most of the athletes that I've had that have done really well, Jen Button, Liz Warden, that have swum international for Canada, they've all gone too a bunch of times, and I'm not so sure it works once. I think you got to do it multiple times before it works. So
how many of you are going on this camp?
We've got 2 going this time from our program. We were going to have, we're going to have 3 go from our program, and then there's 3 that are going to join us from.
And did you want an old master swimmer to join you guys?
Sure, no problem.
Can we follow you and podcast about it?
I'm getting ready for my big meet in Milton.
Big meet. Yeah, you got to time it right there. You got to come down, because the problem is if you come down and compete in the first, supposedly the first 3, 4, 5 days is pretty good.
Yeah.
Right, and I did that last year, and Kylie went to a meet up at the Markham Pool and went 59. I went fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we went to Santa Clara 10 days later, right? And the rule is from days 10 to 18, you're in a trough, and being in that trough isn't good. And we went to Santa Clara, and she went the 100 butterfly. Remember I told you, Dan, I like that 3-point, the 3-second drop between first and second 50. Kylie's usually very good at that. And the first day was 100 fly, and she went out, looked really good, and then all of a sudden I'm watching this unfold in front of me, and I'm going, oh my God, is she hurting? She had a 5-second drop from first 50 to second 50. She cacked, right? Yeah. And I went, oh, this is going to be a long weekend, right? Okay. And
sure so did they call that day 10 to 18 just like the altitude flu?
And that's what it was. Like she couldn't move, right? Yeah. And then the 100 back, thank God she still won, because the other kids were worse, but she was a full second slower than we thought she should have been, and she had done easily usually, right, in season. So anyway, so you can be in a real trough. You got to be careful about it. That's all, right? So, but there's training camps are good. They're you need change for the athletes, and keeps them excited. And down the road, Kylie. What I'll close with is simply saying that Kylie is simply one of the nicest human beings you are ever going to meet. All right, Jason was lucky to be on a team with a woman named Liz Warden, who is a gentle woman that is just again, I think I introduced Liz in the Hall of Fame induction, and I said that if my daughter turns out like Liz Warden, I will feel that I've been a successful father. Wow. All right, Liz is an unbelievably wonderful human being, and Kylie comes from the same cloth. She is so humble. We were at that altitude camp, and somebody said, hey, the Italian team's here. That, Pelterini's a pretty good-looking guy. and Kylie says, I couldn't talk to him. He's an Olympic medalist. And we went, Kylie, so are you. But she just
a great story.
She doesn't see herself as that, right? Like, she's just a very humble person that swims, loves doing it, loves being with her teammates, doesn't want to be in an elite situation with just 3 kids swimming. Like, preparing for the Commonwealth Games was actually not enjoyable, partially because we only had 3 or 4 kids in the pool for the last few weeks before they went away, because most of the varsity kids sort of took a break after the university championship. So she loves the dynamic of a team and loves just racing and having fun, and just a wonderful, wonderful young lady.
Oh, I feel bad now. I also wanted to ask you about Eli Wall, and I feel like we've...
Maybe we can come and chat with you again down the road.
Sure, anytime we want to do it. All right, Eli's done a great job. Eli came to us as a 219 breaststroker, and now he's 211. So he's done a phenomenal improvement since he's been here, and it's through hard work. He's not the most natural swimmer in the world, and we've changed his stroke so that we can use more of his arms and his legs, and he's been very positive about a lot of the steps.
200 breaststroker?
So 200 more than the 100, but his 100's getting better, right? So he doesn't have the power that some of these guys have, and we still have a very big hurdle to overcome, and that's that his underwater work on his start is awful. And I'm not belittling him; he knows it, right? And if we could perfect that, and part of it is because his kick isn't as good as his rivals, and if we could perfect that, we'd probably pick up at least a half a second, if not more, right? Oh. So we've been working on it. We just need to work on it some more. That's all.
So he's going to his swimming is going to continue, because I know he's kind of at the end of his eligibility.
He could. He's done his eligibility. He's done school, right? So he could retire now and retire pretty damn successful. He went to 2 World Student Games, and now he made the final at the Commonwealth Games, made the A team, and made the final in the medley relay. So he could retire, having done a lot, but he's pretty close to being able to make that standard to go to the Olympic Games. And as I've said way back when we started, you can do a lot of things, but boy, having those 5 rings is...
I've been looking at it all the time. It's awesome.
The Olympic ring that I wear, it's a pretty big badge of honor.
Yeah.
Right? And so we'll give it a go with Eli. We'll keep going for a while, and we'll see. Maybe there's some young bucks that are coming up that might get in the way, but he's certainly going to go forward with it. So. And
I know we've said we're going to wrap this up a couple times, but you've mentioned young bucks. How's the recruiting going for the next couple of years?
Very weird. I don't think that there were very many parents having sex in 1999. Okay?
No power outages at that time. No.
Because we had by far the smallest recruiting class we've ever had, first-year students right now. So the kids that were born in '99, right? That enrolled this past September.
Wow.
All right, really, really small. And it wasn't just that we had a bad recruiting year. It was that there were hardly any kids out there in the class of 1999. Nobody can seem to explain it to me, right? Maybe it was just people didn't join swimming, because the track guy said he had a pretty big class. So I don't know, right? But the class of 2000 those parents made up for it because, man, there are a ton of kids that are swimming in the class of 2000 high school graduates, right? And I think I have almost a dozen women that are coming this fall and 7 or 8 guys. And of the women, our women's incoming class will be the best we've ever had, probably. Right?
Really?
Rebecca Smith, obviously, is a Olympic or a World Championship medalist. She'll be, king of the class or whatever, right? But there are 2 other women that were just recently named to Canada's junior national team, the Pan Pac team, to go compete overseas. Yeah. Alexa Gold and Ainsley McMurray. Ainsley's from Montreal. And then we've got a couple other women right under them that are, going to vie for medals and finals at the nationals. So it's a very, very, very strong women's team, right? And Penny hasn't quite finished. She took some years off of high school. Or she might have actually been in that class as well because she's a 2000 baby. Right. But she's still got a little more schooling to do.
Right.
So.
Right.
Is she thinking about U of T?
Well, she can't go to the United States because she's made money, right? So the NCAA won't allow her to compete. So she's got to go to school somewhere in Canada when she goes to school. So I'm sure we'll be talking to her.
Yeah. And so Taylor Ruck, she's going to Stanford.
She's going to Stanford. Yeah.
She's training in Toronto now.
She's a 2000 baby as well.
Yeah.
Right? Part of that amazing class, right? There's another woman as well that we lost out on, unfortunately, that's going down to the U.S. Right? And Taylor is going to Stanford. Yeah. So she moved up from Phoenix to live up here with another one of my alumni. All right. She's boarding with John Grunfeld in the east end of the city and on the beaches, and trains with Ben Titley at the National Center. Ben's done a marvelous job for her, but her life dream has been to go to Stanford her whole life since she's born. She's born in Kelowna. They moved down to Kelowna or somewhere in interior BC, and they moved down to Phoenix when she was 1. So she's Canadian, and the parents are. They're not American either, so she has no choice. It's not like she chose Canada. She has no choice. She can't swim for the U.S., even though she really has been there her entire life, except for the first few months of her life. Right. So her dream since she was little was to go to Stanford. So she's going to Stanford in September. My hope is, and many people's, but it's up to Taylor, our hope is that she will redshirt Olympic year, not go to school, and come back and swim with Ben. Yeah. Right? As much as NCAA runs an amazingly good program, you just wonder if, they're going to be in a whole different situation. They're preparing for the NCAA championships. They're preparing for their trials, which are way different time than our trials. I just, the 2 times that Taylor came up here from the U.S., now it was her high school program, which isn't quite as lofty as the NCAA program at Stanford, but the 2 times she came up, she bombed both the trials. Didn't even make the world's team, and really didn't make the Olympic team, and they added her as a precaution or whatever, I guess, and it turned out to be a good decision, right? But we need her to win medals at the Olympics for Canada. Yeah. Well, we don't need her to, but I mean, she can. But I think we need her here to be able to be with Ben to get her prepared to that nth degree that she needs to do.
Well, what a phenomenal month she just had.
Oh my God! Well, we've seen that coming. She's been a superstar since she was 12. All right. I mean, people have been seeing this. The Americans are salivating. They're pissed off that she's not swimming for the United States. She would have been the next Katie Ledecky, basically, right? So she's that good. We need her, and then we need obviously Penny to get back to the form that she had. Yep. And with those 2 spearheading it, we can win some relay medals. I mean, obviously those 2 can win individual medals, but relay medals just make it pile up even better, right? Because the 2 medals that we won in the relays last time around are going to be harder to win this time around. Yeah. All right. If we do the same that we did last time, we're not going to win those relay medals. We've got to improve and get better. We could even challenge for gold medals if we really got on track. But let's not walk before we run, or run before we walk here. Yeah, right. So
I was laughing because you say Taylor's Canadian, and I was just talking to Rory in the car on the way up here because we were talking about. There's a video interviewing her parents, and I was like, she's not Canadian. That whole family, they're Vikings.
Yeah. They're big people. Right? Yeah. The old man's about 6'7", I think, isn't he, or something, right?
Yeah, so, he looks like a giant.
Yeah, he's a big boy. He used to play hockey.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. And I mean, Taylor's 6'1". Yeah. Okay, and she is possibly the leanest woman I've ever seen in my life, right? Like, she's got nothing to pull through the water, which is an advantage. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's not like she's skinny. She's just one of those, genetic freaks that's just really lean and has a phenomenal metabolism, right? So, so she's good.
Awesome.
Well, we did it.
Yeah, amazing.
Made it.
You made it through. So, Byron, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time.
No problem. It's good. It's a lot of fun.
But thank you so much. Open invitation.
We could probably do it again sometime.
Yeah, I feel like I've got more questions than I came in with.
Good.
So
well,
it's great.
It's always a plus.
But thank you so much. And Rory, do you have anything?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Very, very inspiring.
And I love doing it. That's part of the TV in me, I guess.
You can see it. But but you can see your passion still with the swimming, and that's the best thing.
I'm not going to retire for a long time.
Oh, good for you.
All right.
Take it easy.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
All right, there we go.
As Byron says, there you have it. we've just wrapped up another edition of the SwimGuys Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed sharing it with you. We still got 2 more episodes or 2 more weeks for the Varsity Blues Month, so stand by for episodes with Eli Wall and Kylie Masse coming up over the next couple of Mondays. Please do not forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show, and share it with all your friends. Just keep doing what you're doing. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.